Hello and welcome to another episode of Slice and Dice Ecom. I'm Josh, the founder of the agency, and once again we're joined by
Dan, the senior SEO specialist at ClickSlice.
In this particular podcast episode, what I like to do is, again, I feel like everything's a hot topic, but this is something I get asked a lot, especially on discovery calls when clients on board, is how can they steal market share from some of the biggest competitors by obviously using strategic SEO campaigns. So I think let's dive straight into it, right? How can ecom brands identify which competitors are most vulnerable to losing market share through SEO? Because it's not often the ones that they think are the same ones from SEO, right?
I mean, and this ultimately is the area where you're going to get the most return on your money, like out of the gate. If you go straight in at the high end for the obvious keywords, you're coming up against the strongest competitors. Most of the time, it's going to be a complete waste of your budget initially. So while it's not like an exact science, because you do have to depend on a lot of third-party tools for this, there are rough metrics that can give you an outline of which competitors are too strong, which ones are kind of in the right zone that you want to target. Once you can detect that, and we wouldn't necessarily like completely depend on those third-party tools. There are other things in-house that we would do, but if you are just kind of starting out in this field, that's where you'd go. But the first area that we'd like to look at is how active is the site, because it's here where you can kind of get a good idea of if this competitor site is pumping out high quality content on the regular, they're probably quite good, and they're probably not who you want to start looking at to try and take market share from right away. So if they don't have a lot of good quality content that's coming out in a consistent way, like it's 1 or 2 articles a week, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, those ones stay away from. If it's below that, then target that. What you also want to look for is a small number of collections. So this is an e-commerce specific thing. If they only have, say, 3 or 4 very obvious collections, they've missed out on all of the niche variants. And this is where you find those kind of easy wins. Then the other thing you want to look on, and again, this is completely dependent on third-party tools, so it's not 100% accurate. So because it's so reliant on tools that don't update as fast as Google update, it's not something that you should put your whole kind of focus on. But if you can see that the backlinks that are coming through are low quality or coming through in an inconsistent kind of velocity each month, that's an area where you can go, okay, they don't have a structured SEO campaign in place. They're not gaining high quality backlinks consistently. Therefore, we can get in and there's an edge that we can exploit that they're currently not exploiting.
For sure. I think even just to add on to that as well, like sometimes I see brands building backlinks and they're all going to the same page over and over again. So they're going to suffer more from over optimization. They're not diversifying the backlink profile and even the same link type as well. If they're just building maybe niche edits or just guest posts, just, citations, you want to diversify and what we call like pillow the site essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So imagine a brand's watching this, right? And they're thinking, okay, great, I want to find a competitor that I can get, a strategic SEO advantage over. Like, what is the first steps for them to identify that?
Yeah, so first you want to look at this kind of like an intersection between competitor strength and keyword relevance to your brand. So typically, I mean, this is pretty much the first step that we look at. Where is that overlap between low competition but high commercial intent keywords? Once you know what that is, then you look at the competitors that are ranking in the top 1 to 3 spots of the SERPs. If they are too strong for your site, or your current site strength, avoid it. Because while you may, over a long period of time, claim those spots, if you're starting out a campaign, you need to see quick ROI. So you don't want to go after the most competitive ones.
Too intimidating as well, right?
It is, yeah. So you go after the ones where they don't have highly optimized pages. They're ranking mainly because the site's just strong, but the page isn't. You would also want to look at your own Google Search Console data for this as well. This is something that a lot of people just focus on the competitors. They don't look at where they're already strong and they can actually enhance on that. So if you know that you've already got decent keyword rankings and you know that the competitors that are at the top spots aren't necessarily putting out their best kind of collection page or content page for that spot, that's where you start to look. I would say one thing as well that's quite important is identifying keyword gaps. So I know this is an area that you're particularly good at, so I'll let you take away on that.
Gaps. I always like this to say to brands, like, all right, you sell these products, you have these collections, you want to rank for this, and like we could just put together this SEO blueprint and SEO roadmap for you and follow it, but like we could also look at your competitors and see what keywords they're targeting that you're not targeting, which is what we call a keyword gap analysis essentially. And I find it very effective, and it's probably more effective for brands that are more established and have been doing SEO, because more often than not, brands will have like the core keywords in their head, and I'm ranking on page 1, I'm ranking top positions. kind of completed SEO and you chuck the site and compare it to one of the competitors using the keyword gap analysis, and you see, wow, there's another 6,000 keywords we can target here, and the job's never truly done. And I think using keyword gap analysis just as a standalone strategy is super effective. And the larger your site and the larger your competitors, the more gaps you're going to find. And you can get very granular with the filters as well. So you can say, here's my site, compare my site to competitor A, and only show me the keywords I'm ranking for in the top 10 positions.
Yes. Yeah.
So now looking at the keywords on page 1, you can say only show me the keywords that are keyword difficulty below 30, which of course is a third-party metric. It's not the most accurate, but
can't trust it too
it's one level to add a bit more, like, I guess, stringent.
Strategy into it.
Yeah, of course. And you can also do it based on how many of those keywords are generating a percent of traffic to the site as well. So you could say, look, compare my site to competitor B and only show me the keywords that are generating them 100 plus monthly visitors. So you can get really cool and quite creative with it. And typically when we show this to brands, it's always kind of like mind blowing, like, wow, I didn't know that's a really big thing. And because, you know, I see all the time, right? We told a brand we need a blog post to build topical relevancy or topical authority, different terms, how you want to call it, right? They're like, no, I don't want blog posts, not really going to help me. And you say, oh, these guys are bringing in 10,000 monthly organic visitors, you know, a month from this 2 different blog posts. You don't want to cover it? You don't like money? So that's pretty much how I present it a lot on discovery calls. But yeah, super effective.
Yeah. So I guess on that topic as well, like what strategies, once you know where you need to be targeting, what strategies do you then deploy to take those spots from competitors?
So 2 main approaches. The first is you leverage your existing content. So again, if you've been around in the industry for a long time, you've got a lot of content. Good example, we took on a brand 3 years ago, and it still was to this day, and they had about 500 blog posts. So they've covered the entire topic. So, you know, we don't want to have a cookie cutter strategy. More blog posts. It was clear that they're not leveraging the existing blog posts properly. So what we did is we did this gap analysis, and we didn't really see much. So they was actually leading their competitors. However, a lot of the content wasn't written properly. They had to do with H1 tags. They had no internal linking, you know, a lot of orphan pages as well. So we came in and essentially just optimized that a little bit better. They had a big impact in terms of traffic and impressions from that. And then the other flip side, if you're a brand new brand, excuse the pun there, starting from scratch, you want to create the content essentially. And
absolutely.
if you've got 16 pieces of, you know, topics that you can cover, you then put together a roadmap. You know, what's the deliverables? Can we do 6 blogs a month? Can we do 10? And you start to plan it out essentially. You just have to be aware of what content to post in what order, because if you start publishing, you know, all your supporting content, you don't have your main kind of target page to support to, then you then have to go back into the content, add internal links. So there's a lot of thought process behind it all. But yeah, those are essentially the 2 main things, really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So we obviously touched on quite a bit about seeing our competitors' market share, and it's pretty much content focused so far.
Yes, yeah.
Do you want to touch on the backlink side of it? That's obviously a key part of, you know, overtaking the competitors as well.
Yeah, so backlinks is obviously something you should be doing from day one, but there's kind of an order in which you need to prioritize things. Once your technical sorted out, once you've sorted out all of your content, that's when backlinks really become the main focus that you need to be driving your budget towards. So when you're looking at your competitors' sites, again, unfortunately, because you don't have access to their backend, you don't know what links they truly have. You just get a kind of good overview from third-party tools. The main one we'd recommend for this, which seems to be the most comprehensive and consistent, is Ahrefs. Once you've pulled a full backlink audit of your competitors, you need to then filter it down, because there could be, and in some cases there are, like hundreds of thousands. It's a ridiculous thing to chew through. So what you need to look at is homepage links, and then the priority pages that you're targeting. So if you are just going for commercial terms, you don't need to look at what the blogs have got links to. While that is useful if you're building a content campaign, if you are focused initially just on commercial pages, you only need to look at those particular links that are coming to those pages. So what you then need to do is break down the types of links that are coming through. So what you'll see a lot of is, you'll see a lot of directory style listings. You'll see a lot of like social profile listings. You'll see quite a lot of PR listings as well. This is a strategy that used to be super popular years ago. It still has an effect, but it's not as powerful as it used to be. Once you've seen all of those links are very easy to attain. You can do that in an afternoon for the most part. There is a huge amount of nuance to that. Like, there is ways to do it at a much higher level, and it's obviously something we integrate as part of our strategy. But once you've moved through those, what you should be left with after you've filtered out all of the obviously poor quality links is you should have a list depending on the site, I'd say 50 to 60 high quality content sites that are linking back to your competitors' sites. These are the sites that you then need to start doing an outreach campaign towards. Now, this is time consuming. There is a skill to it. You may have to depart with money depending on who you're contacting.
You definitely should have to. And there's even like you just saying outreach, right? I think sometimes brands will just assume like, I just need backlinks, and like, they don't appreciate the level of like
work that goes into it.
Yeah, like really deep dives, figuring out what is a good backlink, what is not a bad backlink, what page to build a backlink to when they build the backlink, what am I using for the anchor text, what's the link velocity. Like there's so many things to consider.
It's a field in its own right, and you can look at, who are some of the most high paid people in the SEO field. They're backlink specialists, and there's a reason for that. It's very, very difficult to do.
I always say like, but even what I just discussed is like quite a lot of information already, but before you even get to that stage and you send an email, you need to make sure it lands in someone's inbox. There's FPF records, DKIM, like there's DMARC. There's a lot of email deliverability. Arguably, is one of the most important factors of link building that no one really speaks about. Because if you want to get 10 backlinks, just send some emails. It's not a problem. When you're trying to get like 500 backlinks a month, you need a process, you need a system. 100%.
Because you have to know as well. I mean, if you've owned a site for any decent amount of time, and if it's a somewhat strong site, you get hit with, can I buy backlinks? Can I buy from hundreds of people? Like it just comes through nonstop. So not only do you have to stand out from that crowd, you also have to do all of the analysis that gets you to the right site in the first place, which we have an entire department that handles just that one exercise.
On that initially. And I guess it's kind of a topic, but it's related to this as well. And, the whole podcast episode is about how to, basically outrank your competitors and take market share. And in this generation where we live now, where all these AI tools are very accessible, you can create content like 10 seconds in ChatGPT, right? I do believe backlinks as a whole become more and more impactful in Google's algorithm, which they're already super impactful, but I think the quality on them will just go up and up and up. So, that is, I think, probably just as important as the content gap analysis, if not more, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like if you're a relatively sophisticated business, your content should be good. You're not really going to be at a high level if you don't already have some kind of internal department making that content. So at least for the most of the clients that come through to us, they've kind of already passed that point. So then it becomes a much more backlink focused game. And that's where you see the biggest kind of gains.
Cool. So far we touched on content, we touched on backlinks as well. Is there any like technical sides where brands can get an edge over their competitors?
Yeah, so technical is a difficult one because ultimately you need to have somewhat of a decent handle on developer skills to basically make significant, like impactful technical changes. The main thing you're looking for really is page speed. Obviously, there is a lot more to it as well. You've got to make sure there's no 404s. You've got to make sure that everything's connected correctly in the back end. But the main thing you're looking at is page speed. Depending which platform you're using, obviously the two most common that we deal with day to day is Shopify and WordPress. Shopify is fairly easy to optimize. You just need to make sure you're not using a million plugins. There is a lot of other tools, but you have to keep that low. WordPress is a bit more complex. Like the plugins aren't necessarily designed to work with each other. There's no kind of
right?
It's a lot more difficult. But this is somewhere where if you know that the only other variable that's left is your site is loading at 4 seconds, they're loading at 2. You need to get specialists to come and look at that, and you will see a big performance jump over a 6-month window once Google starts to refresh the user experience metrics from those kind of technical optimizations. I'd say one other area that a lot of people miss as well is collection pages need to be a lot more optimized than what we see day to day. I mean, 90% of the websites out there have 1 or 2 lines maximum on a collection page.
If that, it's more often it's just a title of the products, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So WordPress is, I would say, slightly better than Shopify for this in that you can customize the collection pages a little bit easier, but ultimately both of them require the designers and developers to come in and completely overhaul those pages. And you can see it, not that we openly share who we're working with, but all of the collection pages for our clients are super detailed. They have a lot of information on all of them. They have a lot of structured content built in. Internal links are optimized properly. Like there's a lot more that goes into that people realize. And once it's done, you see massive jumps.
It makes sense when people see it, right? And we add the content below the products as well, so it doesn't affect the UX or conversion rate. There's lots of small things that are small but really impactful.
Yeah, massively. So I guess in that vein, how can the smaller brands like realistically compete with the big boys in the space?
First thing is target longer tail keywords for sure. Like, again, if you've got a brand new domain with no authority, no content, no backlinks, no brand, like nothing whatsoever, and you want to just start ranking for black wardrobes or grey wardrobes, against IKEA, Dunelm, like the Argos of massive retailers in the UK, zero chance.
Yeah,
zero chance. So you want to target more longer tail keywords, maybe like small black wardrobe
or
with
particular styles,
handles
like
or bra or whatever people search for, right? Clearly I don't buy wardrobes, I know what I'm talking about. But go for longer tail keywords, I think is really, really important.
Yeah.
The second is, as I touched on in a previous podcast a few months ago, is you want to have as many sub-collection pages as possible.
It's
so
massive.
where you have filter options on your collection page, whether it's color, size, material, every single filter should be a dedicated collection page that actually gets indexed. It's not a dynamic URL, that just happens on Shopify by default. That is really, really important. But ultimately, you do also have to have the right mindset and expectation that, these guys are number one because they've been doing SEO for years, right? Probably from you had an idea to start your brand. So you have to be realistic. You can't just come in and expect to rank in 6-9 months from a brand new domain. Typically you're looking at 12 to 18 months, in a competitive landscape. And that often scares off a lot of brand owners, and what happens is they then park SEO, they go and run Google Ads or paid social or whatever it is, and
that 12 to 18 months later, they're back and we should have started.
Crap, I need to diversify. My customer acquisition cost is going up every single month. So the best time to start is always now. Second best time is going to be tomorrow. Don't leave it too late. And you don't even have to get so aggressive. You can just start off small, get a good foundation, get your on-page structure right, get your internal linking, get some blog posts out there. Try and, speak to your suppliers who's supplying the information or the product. Try and get them to link to you. Just do what a normal person would do, right? Don't just sit on your hands for 12 months and then expect, a miracle in 12 months later down the line.
So on that front, like for these smaller brands, like what should you be tracking like out of the gate to kind of detect if you're actually making the improvements that you're looking for?
So typically sales won't really be a big KPI when you're starting from scratch. So the main two things is going to be keyword rankings and click/impressions, not so much clicks initially, because once you start ranking higher, you start to get more impressions, and as you get more impressions, you get more clicks. And ultimately, even if you search for a term that maybe people, I guess there's a lot of trust behind it, maybe like a smoke alarm or something like that for the house they want to buy. And if you see brands that and you trust, and it's something to do with your health and like life or death, you're probably not going to trust, davesmokealarms.co.uk, right? Like, so some niches, I think, CTRs will be lower than expected. So that's why I say impressions are probably a bit more heavy than clicks initially, but ultimately keyword tracking is really important. And as easy as that sounds, we know there's changes that happened a few weeks ago, last month in the industry, where if you're not in the top 10, I think ultimately, like, I don't mean it in a biased way, but generally SEO out of all the marketing disciplines out there is one of the hardest ones to do yourself in-house.
Absolutely.
Just because of the nature of it, and not to mention the lack of attribution and how difficult it would be to determine what to do going forward based on what you've done in the past. Different variables, right? I could speak hours about this, but it is a big topic in its own right. Well, there you have it. That is tons of different ways you can use to steal market share from your competitors. If you have any questions or want to have a deep dive with me personally about your business and your competitors, feel free to book a discovery call with us. Obviously, link is on the website, top right corner. If not, then continue watching more episodes. Another one coming out in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you shortly.
See you.